We're taking a quick detour from the videos about my trip across America to talk about something a little different. This is my brand new 2027 Moto Guzzi V85TT Travel. How we got here is a bit of an adventure, but let's hop on this beautiful machine and I'll tell you all about it. If you've been following the channel at all, you know that back in November of 2025, I bought a Moto Guzzi V7 Sport. Not too long after that, I happened upon a 2019 Triumph Scrambler 1200XE. The 1200XE was the dream bike I always wanted, and the V7 Sport was the dream bike I didn't know I wanted until I had it for a little while and just absolutely fell in love with it. Fast forward a few months, and the V7 Sport started developing a bit of a problem. It was consuming too much oil. And so after some back and forth with the shop and with Moto Guzzi, they finally found an issue with the top end and decided that the top end would need to be replaced under warranty. And I've got to give a lot of credit to both Optimum Performance Motorsports in Portland and Moto Guzzi for following through and taking care of that issue for me. I was a bit stubborn about it, and I wasn't quite certain it was going to get resolved. But when all was said and done, both Optimum Performance and Moto Guzzi came through for me. Problem is, it was going to take a bit of time to get parts, and then once those parts came in and all the work was done, I was going to have to go through another break-in period. So realistically, I was going to be pretty much without the V7 for most of the summer. At the same time, when I was on my cross-country trip, I looked at Instagram and saw that Optimum Performance had just uncrated a brand new blue Moto Guzzi V85TT Travel. A lot of you will know that I owned a Moto Guzzi V85TT and I took it across the country last year. I fell in love with the bike. I ended up crashing it in Montana, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I traded it. At the time, I said I didn't regret it. But I grew to realize I regretted the hell out of it. Anyway, last week or so, during my cross-country trip that I just finished, I stopped at Cleveland Moto and met a gentleman named Phil, the owner. Phil is a very enthusiastic Moto Guzzi nerd, much like myself. I walked in and I said, "Oh my God, you have that brand new V85TT, the updated version. Tell me all about it." And Phil went on to tell me all about it. And then, after a long conversation, I had 4,000 miles of motorcycle riding to really think deeply about what I wanted in a motorcycle and all that jazz. The day after I got home, I went down to Optimum Performance Motorsports and I said, "Hey, what would you think about taking the V7 that needs the work and my Scrambler 1200XE and give me one of those shiny blue V85TT Travels?" And after a bit of back and forth, we came to an agreement, and here I am on a brand new Moto Guzzi V85TT Travel 2027. I'm obviously in the very beginnings of the break-in period, so today I'm out on a sort of break-in run. What I'm doing is riding some twisty roads with climbs and descents. I'm taking a break every 10 or 15 minutes to let the engine cool so that it will heat cycle. I'm not tearing up the roads or anything, but I'm not being incredibly gentle either. I'm doing what I think is the proper break-in procedure for a bike like this. At the same time that I'm breaking in the engine, of course, I'm breaking in the tires and the brakes and everything else. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what actually led up to this decision in case you're in a similar place where you're trying to decide what your next bike is or whatever the case may be. For me, one thing that I realized on my last cross-country trip was just how much motorcycle touring means to me and how important it is to my mental well-being. And it was a hoot doing it on the Himalayan 450. For a single-cylinder 450cc engine in a bike that costs $6,000, that thing punched way above its weight. It was amazing. I'm completely blown away at how well that bike did. In the end, though, the Himalayan was meant to be an off-road moto camping bike and not necessarily my full-on touring bike, which left me in sort of a predicament that I didn't really have a full-on touring bike, and that's the one thing that I really want to do. The Scrambler 1200XE could do it, but it's not the perfect machine for it. The V7 Sport would actually be a great machine for it, but at the same time, it's a little cramped when you're doing hundreds of miles a day. And on my last trip that I just got home from, I was doing 400 and 500 mile days. The problem is, I've never loved a motorcycle more than I love that V7 Sport. And again, I only had it since November, and it's the end of June now, so how many months is that? Every day of my cross-country trip, I yearned to get home and get back on that bike. So it was really hard for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna trade it, I'm gonna let it go, and I'm gonna move on. But in the end, I think it was the right decision because, well, first of all, that gray color really never stuck with me. I actually priced out buying the green tank and fairings for it, but it was really pricey. I contemplated trading it for the green version, but then again, that got really pricey too. So while I loved that bike more than any bike I've ever owned or ridden, honestly, I never meshed with that color. And I know that's a little thing, but you know, for a bike that you want to have for the rest of your life, the color really does make a difference. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why it wasn't as hard to let that bike go as it could be. The other thing is, I just didn't want to have to go through another break-in period with that bike and, you know, hope for the best. I'm sure the work would have been done fantastically, the parts would have been great, I'm sure everything would have worked out. But I'd always have it in the back of my head that, you know, it had a rebuilt top end and all that stuff, and whatever. That's just me. I talked to a couple of friends who are motorcycle dealers, and they said, you know, you're getting a brand new top end. What are you complaining about? Like, you're basically getting a new engine in a almost brand new bike. You should be thrilled. Yeah, you're right. But I'm crazy. So it is what it is. Anyway, the Scrambler 1200 XE was definitely on a short list of my dream bikes to own in my life. I'm glad I did, but for some reason, and I don't know what it is, that wasn't the bike I was yearning to come home and ride. When I got home the day before yesterday, I actually rode the hell out of that bike. Even after riding 400 and whatever miles home, I dusted myself off and got on the Scrambler and just tore shit up. It was fun as hell. But I don't know. I can't really explain what it is about the Scrambler 1200 XE. Just didn't make me yearn to come home and get on it. I can't really explain it, but it definitely told me something about how I feel about that bike. I love it. It's It's one of the most beautiful bikes I've ever seen in my life. But I don't know. I can't really explain it. So it wasn't hard to let that bike go. The third thing also is, I'm just in no position to have 3 motorcycles. Financially, it's a drain, and more than anything, I just don't have room for 3 motorcycles in my garage right now. Now, I say that tomorrow, if a $2,000 track bike shows up, who knows what's going to happen. But I'm just saying, for right now, having 2 motorcycles in the garage is absolutely perfect for me. Do I have the perfect 2 motorcycles in the garage right now? I don't know. They're kind of redundant, right? I've got the Himalayan and I've got this. This bike isn't going anywhere because this is the bike that I'm taking to Alaska next year. Spoiler alert, like and subscribe for more about that. The Himalayan, well, that's my moto camping bike. That's the bike I'm going to put the knobbies back on, and I'm going to take deep into the woods and learn how to really ride on dirt and stuff like that. So I don't think they're redundant. If it turns out that they are, then I may consider trading the Himalayan for a Continental GT. I know, right? Wouldn't that be an amazing bike to sit alongside this? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The Himalayan's not going anywhere anytime soon. It proved itself. It earned its position in my garage. That thing is a beast, and I love it. Let me tell you a little bit about the 2027 V85TT Travel from the 142 miles worth of experience that I have on it. This bike is absolutely gorgeous. Not just looking, but it rides like an absolute dream. I've had the V85TT, the 2023 model, and I can say without a doubt, this bike is more refined in just about every way. This is a better motorcycle, much better motorcycle. The wind protection is amazing. The TFT display is spot on. It's not too much, it's not too little, it's modern enough, but it doesn't look ridiculous, it's perfect. It's got variable valve timing, which according to Phil at Cleveland Moto, gives the engine a little more zhuzh. and I can definitely feel that. It's just smoother and nicer, and it's just, again, more refined. The actual structure of the bike is a little bit more, I would say, mature than the previous version of the V85. It looks the part now. The other one looked a little bit like it was trying too hard to be an enduro bike or something. I don't know. This one looks like a touring bike or a sport touring bike, or it looks like what I want. That's not to throw any shade on the previous version of the V85TT, because that was an amazing bike too. But this one is just the next level. This bike from the factory, the travel version anyway, has heated grips. It has a heated seat that is so heated that even on setting 1, your buns get toasted. Toasted buns. It's pretty amazing. It's got cruise control. It's got a 6-axis IMU. It's obviously got ABS. It's got like 5 riding modes: road, rain, sport, off-road, and custom. And it retains enough of that goofiness from the previous version of the V85, like the bug-eye headlights and the beak and the 2 little round brake lights that look like jet engines. It's just, I don't know, I think they really nailed it with this bike, and I'm really thrilled with it. The big question is, and I knew the answer to this going in, by the way, but the big question is, does it have that same sort of character and soul, the same sort of mechanical expressiveness that the V7 Sport did? And the answer is no, or yes, but in a different way. I knew from previous experience that this bike wasn't going to feel like the V7. The V7 it's just a special bike. I don't know how else to describe how special that bike is. This bike is a little bit more, I guess, refined than the V7. It's a smoother ride, the engine's smoother, or at least that's just my initial impression anyway. So it doesn't quite have that same mechanical expressiveness as the V7. But it makes up for it in utility. This bike is just the perfect machine for the type of motorcycle touring that I enjoy doing. The advantages that this bike has over my Himalayan 450, for example, is that this thing will eat up highway miles. Now, I don't necessarily want to eat up highway miles, but there are times when you just have to. And that's the only place I would say that the Himalayan 450 fell down a little bit. And when I say fell down, I don't mean that it couldn't do it. It did it just fine, but you feel it. You feel the stress. You know, when you're doing 85 miles an hour on a highway, which you have to do sometimes in the United States because the speed limit is 80 and people are going 90, so you go 85 or whatever. That's a bit of a struggle over very long periods of time for any 450cc engine. The Himalayan handled it. It handled it just fine. But would I want to ride for 3 hours at 85 miles an hour on the Himalayan? Probably not, because I respect the bike too much to do that to it. This bike would have zero problem with that. Even though it's air-cooled, it would have zero problem going 85 miles an hour for 12 hours at a time. Otherwise, you know, this bike is very, very comfortable. The Himalayan's comfortable too. I can't knock the Himalayan for lack of comfort. I'd say that the riding position is very similar. The Moto Guzzi just has the best seat of any motorcycle. Bar none. Fight me. That's just a fact. The Moto Guzzi seats on this bike, on my V7, on my previous V85, they're just next level seats. The fact that this one is heated certainly doesn't hurt. And then finally, I haven't released this video yet, but you'll see in an upcoming video, I had a bit of a moment of drama related to the chain on my Himalayan 450. I always knew that a chain on a touring bike was sort of its Achilles heel. And, you know, not having to do everyday maintenance on a chain and adjust the chain and all that stuff is a huge benefit. Last year when I was on my V85TT going across the country, I didn't have to worry about chain maintenance once. On the Himalayan, I had to do it every day. I'd lube it every day. I'd clean it usually every day or every other day. I'd adjust the tension on it a few times just to make sure, because you don't want a chain coming off at 75 miles an hour on a freeway. Ask me how I know. We'll get there. Anyway, again, that's no knock on the Himalayan. It's a chain-driven bike. That's what it does. I just really prefer a shaft drive. I love shaft drives. They're my thing. One other thing, I've said this a million times in my videos, I don't care about wind protection. I rode, what was it, 8,000 miles or whatever it was with the Himalayan with the most minimal wind protection you could ask for, and it didn't bother me, I don't think, once. Now, I've got basically a war shield in front of me, and I gotta say, it's kind of nice. I kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie. This one goes up and down. It's cool. It's manual. It's not automatic, which I actually prefer, because you know that automatic windshields that go up and down, those are going to break at some point. This is pretty simple. You push it in, it goes down and up. That's it. You don't have to worry about any sort of electronics or motors or anything like that. And it works. It works brilliantly. It's the thing that I never wanted, but now that I have it, yeah, I'm kind of sold. Kind of sold on wind protection, I gotta be honest. Especially yesterday when I was out riding this bike in the rain, and I came home and I was basically bone dry, except for my knees. Anyway, if it's not completely obvious, I'm 95% gutted that I don't have my V7 anymore. I really am. However, it gives me something to look forward to, because I know next year at this time, I'm going to be buying myself a green or a red Moto Guzzi V7 Sport. 100%. 95% anyway. That bike got into my blood, and I don't think it'll ever leave. God, I love that bike. However, I love this bike too, and this bike is more purpose-built for exactly the kind of stuff that I want to do. And so I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with this bike. If you have any questions about the V85TT Travel or Moto Guzzi bikes in general, leave a note in the comments. I, of course, will eventually do a pretty thorough review of this bike once I'm used to it and I get some miles on it and it's all broken in and I can wind it out a little bit. It's that dog. Because I think a lot of you who follow this channel who are into motorcycle touring would really benefit from taking this bike out for a test drive. It's fantastic. Anyway, back to regularly scheduled programming. The next video will be the last video in the series of me going from Newport, Oregon to Boston, Massachusetts on my Himalayan 450. After that, it's all coming home. Be safe out there.